here, not from the pool, but from the mind of the one and only Gregory P. Allen Braggs. It is a special edition of Bears After Dark. Bears After 8, summer version. I assume you can hear me. I don't. Now I can see myself. Braggs is running the show right now. I'm very nervous, but this is very exciting too. Welcome into Bears After Dark, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up, and you get all the good things. Great to see everybody. Matt Nagy is here. Bad McBay Canator. That's right. It's Braggs After Dark, the bad show.
I thought you were going to call it the Bay Show.
Well, I got to that today because we used to do this at 6:30, and I'm thinking to myself, why am I working at 8 o'clock at night on May the 24th talking Bears after doing a show today? But you set this time, so I'm here. But this is, I honestly, I would do it at midnight. I do it 3 a.m. Great to see you, buddy. You're my favorite. You know this. And Mark Potash going to be on the show today. I'm a Potsy guru / nerd. So I'm thrilled that we're going to have Mark on, and that's coming up in about 5 minutes. You want to start with David Montgomery. And Braggs, I actually made an error. So I'm going to leave you for 1 second because I do need a frosty beverage.
You're going to leave me all by myself. That's fine. You go, and
I'll set Why don't you just start laying out your
for our viewers?
Set the table for
your
Montgomery.
Frosty beverage.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tonight is going to be a fun night because we got, like Mark just said, Mark Potash from the Chicago Sun-Times coming on in just a few moments. We'll get into the David Montgomery stuff later because I certainly want to give my opinion. I know the boys talked about it earlier today on the afternoon show, but I think I might have been a little ahead of the curve when it comes to old Demo. All due respect to my guy. I mean, I hope he's enjoying life in Detroit, but taking shots across the bow, I'm ready to shoot back. So, but we'll get to that later on. And I also just want to mention to everybody in the chat, at the end of the show, I'd like to give as many chat questions away. So if you got any questions in the chat, I'll highlight them. And then at the end of the show, we'll talk to you about some of your thoughts. So please get them in. This is your opportunity to get some of your questions answered tonight by me and Carm.
That's a great job by you. I almost feel like I don't even have to stay for the show. I'm like, you got this thing. You want to get into David Montgomery? Are you upset?
What I want to get into 20 minutes before the show started.
Yeah.
Robert Gankar said, can't wait to hear more BS out of Krampa's mouth. I like that he uses the Krampa about field support for Claypool. It's the Krampas of the world that make athletes not want to do interviews. Just twist everything they say to make BS. Krampa, your response to Mark or Robert.
To Robert, who, Robert, it's okay. We don't have to be arm in arm on everything that comes out of my mouth. I know you love most things, but this one kind of irked you, and that's the way it's going to go sometimes at CHGO Bears. We're not always going to be dancing down the same side of the street. But I would like to remind you, Robert, that when we brought up this topic today at noon with my leader, my guy, my hero, my true favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With
I'm
Adam,
moving up the ladder, but I'll let him have it.
I love everybody. We know this. So with Adam, I said, do you want to do glass half full? Do you want to do glass half empty? It's a quote. There's a million which ways you can read it. And so when I did the glass half empty, Robert, along with some others, got a little triggered and want to push back at me on the fact that Justin, even though he once again mentioned, let me pull up the exact quote here, if I may, from my amazing notes from earlier today. I should have had that in front of me. My apologies.
I jumped the shark on you on it. So
no, that's okay. He said Chase has improved tremendously from the end of last year till now. That's one thing I'm truly proud to say, seeing his work ethic, his attitude change. Robert, the rest of Bears Nation who's fighting back on this. Have you heard any comments on anyone on the whole roster about an attitude change? I'll answer that for you. No, you haven't. This is the only guy on the roster that was gone at on the sidelines by Fields last year, and he's bringing it up and complimenting him, but attitude change. And then he goes, you can see he's taking another step, so definitely excited for that. It's something to pay attention to, all right? Chase Claypool has been an emotional guy that sometimes can get in his own way. Let me raise my hand. I am someone that can get in my own way. So is Greg Braggs. So are you, Robert. So is Gary. So is Nagy. So is everyone. And as you mature in life, you hopefully get to understand yourself a little bit better, and you can prepare for moments where you might get a little bit outside yourself and lose your mind, like for Chase Claypool. If I go into this game and the first 5 throws go to DJ Moore and the next one goes to Darnell Mooney, and then all of a sudden Tyler Scott is running free and I don't have the football, how am I going to react? And
Well, and you guys brought up a fair point when you started just doing the simple math on it. I mean, unless we expect this guy to throw for over Justin Fields, that is, to throw for over 4,000 yards, the numbers start adding up when you start divvying it out and you try to be realistic and spread the wealth around. Let's not forget, you guys didn't even mention the running backs that'll catch receiving yards into that 3,600 yard equation. So it's not going to be easy for anybody to get theirs in totality of like what they're, hoping, especially guys in a contract year like Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool. So I thought it was a fair discussion. And the other half of it is people act like it's just the media that twists things up. 2 days ago on Bears Twitter, somebody put out a video, shared the video of Chase Claypool's TikToks, because he's been doing a lot of them in the training rooms and inside Hallis Hall. And along this long video of him kind of taking you through a tour of Hallis Hall, at one point, he's trying to trick Darnell Mooney because he doesn't like to be on camera. And he puts the phone in his pocket. He's like, I'm going to show you how mean Darnell Mooney is. And then Darnell Mooney is wiser to what he's trying to do. He goes, get that camera off of me. And then all these Bears fans on Twitter were like, oh, see, Chase Claypool's not focused and doing TikToks and Darnell Mooney's focused. So everybody that always wants to vilify the fans are playing this game too this time of year. It's the worst time of the year, all right? It's the summer. We should just be focused on having fun in the sun and getting to training camp. But, the content beast must be fed. So you're always going to have a conversation about different things. And all we have to go off right now is quotes and non-padded practices. That's what we have right now.
And to Rex Smith in the comments here, it's just the media. The media just gets more sensitive than everyone else when they get called out. I can't speak for all of media, Rex, but I can speak for myself. And there has not been one show on this CHGO Bears network where a good bunch of people aren't coming at me. And for the most part, I sleep well at night. So I would say that my sensitive muscle is fairly well built up. There's a lot, and people have different levels. Some athletes, they only talk when they win. They're not there after losses. They don't want to deal with it. Part of the deal, right?
And it's not true, Rex. I keep the receipts on Twitter. I'm following Bears Twitter closely. I'm friends with a lot of people from Bears Twitter. Follow most of them. If anybody wants to follow, come and ask me. I'll follow you. I ain't got no problem following you and seeing what you're talking about. But when Louis Riddick was held feet to the fire before last year started, saying the Seattle Seahawks were going to be better than the Bears, Bears fans were up in arms. And then when that ended up being the truth, Louis Riddick called everyone out, and Bears fans certainly did get sensitive about it. But that's a discussion here maybe for later in the show, but wanted to strike it up a little bit and get my guy Carm fired up. But we now have to bring on our special guest from the Chicago Sun-Times, the legend, Mark Potash, joined CHGO Bears After Dark. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be on.
Potsy,
you guys.
I started the show with this is just an enormous thrill to have you on. I think is this your first time on CHGO?
I think so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
where are you? Is that your basement? And are all those books?
Yeah, it's my office in my basement. Yeah.
See, but you're burying the lead. It's not the books. I've had him on my podcast previously a couple years ago.
Potash is
You're
a great
missing the
man.
lead. It's not the books. It's the old school TV up to his left. That is
That's huge.
That's the best part of what you got rocking in that basement.
that's where I
What's
break
that, a
down all my
1987 special?
What's that?
Is that a 1987 special there?
Oh, probably right around there. But yeah, it's hey, it still works, just it's not obsolete.
Hey, don't throw out when things are functioning. Why get rid of them? All
hey,
right,
I'm 64 and I'm not obsolete. I hope.
You're in your prime, Mark. Let me. I actually, if people don't mind, I'd like to go back in time a little bit here because we had Richard Dent on yesterday, Potsy, and I asked him who on that defensive line helped you the most be as great as you were. Now, Richard was going to be great no matter what, but he's got Hamp, he's got Mongo, and I thought he would say one of those two, and he went ahead and said the refrigerator because they played on the same side, and he threw William Perry a ton of love, and I was like I was totally surprised by that answer. Does that surprise you?
No. To tell you the truth, it doesn't. I mean, you would think that Hampton or McMichael would be the choice, but it doesn't surprise me at all. And it's kind of, I think, it applies to the current Bears. I mean, the inside guys, the best inside guy who can create the most push is the guy who makes it better for the outside rushers. That's kind of what we're looking at with the Bears, right? And of course, like you said, Dent was going to be great no matter what. But it doesn't surprise me because I think that is an underrated facet. Is depending at Hampton was inside tackle, McMichael was too. Just in general, the push those guys got is what really made that defensive line as good as it was. And so it's just no, it doesn't surprise me because I think that's kind of a unheralded facet to any great outside pass rusher. They're like quarterbacks; they get too much of the credit and that's, I think that's a good example of just how important the inside guys are.
And I'll throw one more at you. Did you have a Hall of Fame vote, Mark?
I did not.
Okay. Listen, I think that Richard obviously belongs and Hamp obviously belongs. Mongo's not in there, and prayers up for Steve, and just amazing, honestly, that he's still with us here with everything he's going through. But I was looking at the stats today, Potsy. Career numbers. Steve McMichael, 95 sacks. And I'm not doing this to down Hamp because Hamp's a friend of mine and an absolute Hall of Famer. But Mongo, 95 sacks. Hamp, 82. Mongo, 213 games in the NFL. Hamp, 157. And when you talk to guys around that team, Mongo gets praised time and time again for being a consistent dude making plays and did not get the respect for whatever reason that he deserved. I mean, when I look at that, it's like, how in the world is Steve McMichael not a Hall of Famer?
Well, I see why the way people look at the Hall of Fame, it's understandable. I get it why he's kind of overlooked, but like you make a good point. I think longevity and consistency and being there every day is also an underrated facet of the NFL. And he not only was there, but he was consistent. He was one of those guys who, you remember Akeem Hicks when Akeem Hicks was with the Bears, he was one of those guys who, even when he wasn't, if you watched him just solo, you saw that he made an impact on every single play. And Steve McMichael did that for a longer period of time at probably a higher level. And that's the important thing, the overlooked thing about defensive tackles is that they impact every play, not only, for the outside guys, but for themselves and for linebackers. And he made, McMichael made a lot of players better than they probably were. So I would agree with that. But I think you really need, that's why I think the Hall of Fame is good. They really have guys who saw them play, make the, pitch their case at the Hall of Fame vote. And I think that's one thing that will help McMichael, the sooner the better, obviously. But I understand why he's overlooked, and I understand why people who didn't see his career, watch him game to game, would not vote him in and would think he's a very good guy. But when you know the kind of the nuances of football and see it firsthand, I think you can see why Stephen McMichael would be very deserving, because he was a huge part of those Bears teams, and just his story in itself, coming from where he did to be as good as he was and as consistently as he was, you could always count on him. I could certainly, I'd be in favor of that.
And Braggs, by the way, I didn't mean to turn this into an 85 Bears conversation at the start here, but it's just been it was on my mind later today. The more I was thinking about it, and this is my last little tidbit on it. They had Wilbur Marshall when they won the Super Bowl, and then the Bears didn't want to pay him. George McCaskey was completely out of his mind. Not George, Mike McCaskey and company, and they let Wilbur go to Washington, and that defense was never the same. So that dude, they were very good, but they weren't as dominant without Wilbur. Would you agree with that? You're giving me the look, Patsy.
Yeah. Are you talking? I would let me interject and say I think so. That's, it's also noteworthy that Wilbur Marshall was kind of never the same either. He was good, very good with the Redskins, but not as good as he was, and that's why I think it's so important to do everything you can to keep teams together in the NFL and allow teams to pay players. And of course, I don't know if that was quite the issue. I think it was just more the Bears just didn't want to give up the money. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think continuity is important in football. I think there are guys, not to take it off on a tangent, but I think Ndamukong Suh is a great example of a guy, best defensive tackle in football. I mean, best defensive player in football. Aaron Donald level. He went to a new team and has never really. He's been a good player, but never the same. And I think that was kind of a Wilbur Marshall thing. Even though he was very good, but he wasn't. Just wasn't the same thing. And that's why and that's why I just think it's important, as much as they can in football, is to allow teams that draft and develop well to keep those players and keep players together. I think it benefits players and teams to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, we appreciate your coverage very much as Bears fans. I think I can speak for everybody in the chat. I think the one thing that we love about you is when you're in these press conferences, we always know you stand out because your questions are always pretty hard hitting, and then you'll follow them up fairly quickly with another one. And we as Bears fans, that's what we want, is to have these guys, not, out of purpose, to get a click, but to hold these guys' feet to the fire so we can hear some real answers. And when you were at these OTAs here over the last, couple days and just what you've seen from these new look Bears, I think what everybody's focused on the players, and I want to get to some of your observations with them, but are we asking enough questions about the coaching staff? They've been here a year now. Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, Alan Williams. They get so much of a pass because the roster was so depleted last year. Have we asked enough questions of if they're ready to take this next step, not just the players?
Well, I'll tell you, Greg, I don't know if we're not asking enough questions. I do think this is a huge year for this coaching staff. I think this season is all about the coaching staff. They've put a lot of faith in scheme fit and getting the right players for the right position, and for players in the first year making jumps from the second year. I still say that, the most important, I think that one of the most important players to watch is Braxton Jones. Can he, I know Darnell Wright, I have confidence that he will be a competent, if not good, right tackle, but can Braxton Jones in the second year in this offense be better? And that's a lot of that is, Darnell Wright's going to be good because he's good. Braxton Jones needs to be taught and coached. And I think he's going to be a guy you look at and say, was he coached well enough to take it to the next level? And so I think this is going to be, that's just one example. I mean, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, they've got a ton of guys who are now in their second year, and they're good players, but I think coaching is going to be a big factor in those guys being just good for rookies to being good, NFL playoff caliber good. And so I think those questions need to be asked as the season progresses. Let's see what happens. Right now, I'm still in that as far as the coaching staff, still in that year one mode where they have the benefit of the doubt. As this upcoming season progresses and early, and they need to show improvement, that's when the questions for the coaching staff will start. Because when you don't get a big pass rusher like they haven't. And when you're counting on rookies to make it make an impact, that's all about coaching. Someone's gonna have to make DeMarcus Walker a much better pass rusher than he was, and that's coaching. And someone's gonna have to prove to us that Tremaine Edmonds is a better fit for this defense than Roquan Smith was. That's coaching. So it's all about coaching. So to answer your question, I'm not at that point right now where we need to be asking those questions, but I am definitely looking to do that as this season progresses, because that's what this season's all about, is players already on the roster progressing.
And I think the biggest question for me, because the one thing I know I can take away from is they got a little lost in the sauce with Justin Fields last year, and they ran him out of gas. It was fun. We were all on the carnival ride together. It was amazing to watch for 6 weeks. And then his legs literally gave out, and then they kept running him to the point where he injures his shoulder. And then it becomes this trickle-down effect at the end of the year where you're kind of putting him in harm's way at that point by playing him with a hurt shoulder and tired legs. And my question is going to be, can Eberflus and Luke Getsy show discipline this year to develop Justin Fields without getting greedy by just having him do it himself, because you're trying to win games?
Yeah.
Justin Fields can do that on his own, but you do it too much and he's going to get tired legs again. And before you know it, we're going to have PJ Walker in there, taking some starts from Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think last year was kind of a one-off for the way Justin Fields was used. There's no way that they expect to use him that same way. There will be a failure if they have to do that. I'll bet there's a better chance that the question we'll be asking is, are you running him enough at the end of this year? Because they are going to have to be able to pass the ball, and he's going to have to be a passer for him to be an effective quarterback in the NFL. That's kind of what last year, I thought that was what last year proved, is that, the running is great. He literally was setting NFL records, but yet we saw, like you said, what it did to him and to the offense. And it just, that offense was just not ready for Justin Fields to lift this offense on his shoulders. This year, it's going to have to be that way. And if it's not, even if they win some games, I don't think it's going to be a successful season. It's all about Justin Fields becoming a quarterback and not just a running quarterback.
Mark, what was your first year covering the Bears?
Mid 90s. I guess I was coming out in like 95, 96 for like, as a backup for, Friday practices and things like that. And
okay. Because I guess I'm just trying to go back through history here. So you've seen it all. You don't have to cover it. But in your mind, why do you think the Bears have never been able to figure out the quarterback position? And to top that off, do you think they have it figured out now?
Well, it's a huge question for theirs. I'll be honest. I don't know why. I think they are a dysfunctional organization. They have been for a long time. They definitely have been since Michael McCaskey took over. Ever since George Halas died, they've been even more dysfunctional to a detrimental level. And I don't know how much that affects the quarterback situation per se, or in particular, but just in general, they've had trouble getting wide receivers, any kind of offense. So I just think it's I go into management. Even good management has not. Let's put it this way: Jim Finks is one of the best general managers in the history of the NFL. Certainly the best that the Bears have had in the modern NFL. And the one aversion he had historically was quarterbacks. He could not get a quarterback at Minnesota. He traded Fran Tarkenton and had to get him back to get them back on track. He could not get a quarterback with the Bears. Most people, I think, agree that Jim McMahon was a Mike Ditka pick. That was, in his tenure. So that's the best. So even what I'm saying is, I don't want to denigrate the GMs, because a lot of them were actually pretty good, but even the best GMs struggled we're not quarterback centric and struggled with that. So I don't know if there's any theme to it, to be honest. I think it's just general mismanagement. They haven't been able to get enough players on offense who could make any quarterback good. Everything had to be perfect, and it just hasn't been.
I mean, I think it's a very fair answer. It's not just a quarterback problem. It's an overall problem, which is why the Bears haven't won a Super Bowl since 1985. I get it. Do you think, and can say with confidence, that the organization right now is in the best position that it has been in since maybe Jim Finks was there? Or are you still in the, well, let's wait and see and give it
Yeah,
a little more time to marinate before you go there?
it's hard to say because I was I felt pretty good about Ryan Pace after the first couple of years, and supposedly with once he got going with Matt Nagy, you were hearing a lot about collaboration, and you heard a lot about chemistry and culture, and it was supposedly good. And now it turns out the culture was bad, right? I mean, so who knows? We're too early in it to make any kind of judgment. The one thing I will say is, I do like polls. I like the way I think there are some differences. You always look for things they do differently because GMs have always, in the beginning, like, Phil Emery, first thing he did was he got Brandon Marshall, and we all thought that was great. And then Ryan Pace, the first thing he did was get rid of Brandon Marshall, and we thought that was great. Maybe that in itself tells you what the problem is that both guys, one of their best early moves was for the same player, but one was for getting him, and the other was getting rid of him. But my point is that those guys look good early too, and it always looks good at this point. But what I like about Poles is, he's much more transparent. He talks to the national media. He's not afraid to leak things and to tell people things, and he plays the game. That's the best way I can say it. He's willing to play the game, which Ryan Pace to a fault, literally to a fault, was not. He was so spy versus spy secretive that he screwed himself by fixating on a quarterback that he never should have fixated on. And maybe if there would have been trial balloons and things like that, and people would have known about interest in Trubisky, maybe things might have been different. Who knows? But anyway, that's a totally different story. But I just think I like that about Poles. I like the fact that I thought he should have made more out of the cap space and frankly the draft capital he had, just as far as names or impact. Get a Will Anderson, get a Jalen Carter, get an Orlando Brown. But that doesn't mean I'm right. I could be. I like the fact that he did something else and looked and kind of played the long game and looked towards 24, 25, pick up draft picks, get lesser player, get lower play. I like that he's patient. I like that. I think that's a good sign. But I think the best thing, frankly, is that they have Kevin Warren. They have a buffer now between the McCaskey, Ted Phillips thing that kind of, for some reason, made everyone the worst version of themselves at Hallis Hall. And I think the more insulation you have from that level of the leadership with the Bears, I think the better. And I think that might, as much as anything, give Poles and Eberflus the best chance for success, because instead of chumming around with George and Ted, now they're chumming around with Kevin Warren. And Kevin Warren, not necessarily a football guy, but certainly just a much more credible football or sports guy, I guess, who I think will be a good sounding board on multiple levels for the Bears. So I think that's reason to think that, this could be different. But to your original question, a little too early to make, for me anyway, having seen too many of these things fall apart after you feel so good about it, a little too early to say, this one's going to be different, because so many things could happen. No injuries. Who's going to get hurt? Right. I mean, we don't know. So, if Kevin White doesn't get hurt, maybe Pace's his regime is a little bit different. So,
and to your point, when you bring up the irony of getting rid of Brandon or trading for Brandon, then getting rid of him. Well, with Pace, he did the worst move in drafting Mitch Trubisky, and then the best move of drafting Justin Fields, and still got fired for it. But I think the difference is with Pace and Poles is, with Pace, he traded up for both of those guys, whereas Poles, like you said, is playing the long game and trying to trade back. So maybe just because it's different than what Pace did, which failed, is why Bears fans are trusting in his process so far. I mean, you brought up.
I would add to that just that I think it's important. I think the draft pick thing is important. I think acquiring, now Pace was in a situation where with Khalil Mack, where he had to give up picks and somebody did it on his own. But I think in general, you look at the Bulls who have no draft picks. I mean, I think acquiring picks is better than giving them away. I think in general, I think we've learned that over the last few years, and that is definitely Poles' MO. He gave up one to get Tyreek Stevenson, I think, but he got it back. So he's. I think that sounds to me like the way to go.
Well, I mean, while we're on this part of it, let's just get into it real quick because you put two. I was going to ask this later, but I want to ask it now that we're in this point of draft picks because right after the schedules came out, you picked the Bears. I don't know if it was tongue in cheek. You never know with you in your Twitter game, which is top notch, Potsy. But you said Bears 10-7, and then you had the Panthers for 3 wins this year. And if that's the case, the Bears are going to have another top 5 or even potentially a top 3 pick. And if that's the case, when you look at this quarterback class that's coming out, there could be the potential to trade back even more and acquire more future first-round picks, which I love all about when it comes to acquiring future draft capital. So when you look at Bryce Young, obviously I'm not sure how you feel about him and his growth personally, but you obviously think that they're not going to be there this year.
Well, I was actually that was more tongue in cheek than anything else. So just having a little fun with Bears fans. Actually, I think the Panthers are going to be have a chance to be pretty decent. Maybe even the same record as the Bears. I mean, they could be. So I'm not sure. I'll be honest. In all honesty, getting out of my Twitter persona and my reporter's persona, I'd say there's as good a chance. I'd say the Panthers actually have a decent chance. Amazingly because their schedule right now, who knows what'll happen, how it'll turn out. But their schedule just isn't difficult enough where you can predict that they will go 3-14 or whatever. So I think I'm not sure who's going to have the higher pick, to tell you the truth, but it does give them another shot at it at getting that pick. But yeah. But I think I'm hoping, I guess, that they have a better shot at Marvin Harrison Jr. than looking at a quarterback, because I think if the Bears need a quarterback in the draft, they're going to be in tough shape all the way around, and there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, that won't be a fun conversation. What is with you being at OTAs, getting to see DJ Moore first time in a Bears uniform. When Brandon Marshall came here with all, his craziness at times, he was a dynamic wide receiver. Never seen a guy like that come to training camp and catch one-handed passes with his size and everything. Now you've got a similar, caliber star wide receiver in DJ Moore. What are your takeaways with him or any of these newcomers? Has any of them stood out to you so far in this very early process with the new look Bears?
Yeah, can't really say that after watching one OTA, especially in May. It's just way too early to make any kind of judgments. DJ Moore is impressive. I think he adds the one facet I think he adds that you've seen already is that, and very simply, he can get open. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, just get open. And I think the Bears already, even hearing from Fields yesterday, that you can tell that he has an appreciation just for the fact that this guy understands the game within the game, the nuances of the game, and how it takes more than just short area quickness and speed to get open in the NFL. And I think he's looking forward to that, just completing passes. And I know I've said it before. I just think that's the most important thing for this offense, because a lot of talk about the chemistry and having a connection, and you mostly get that in games. I know it's built. You build the foundation for that in practice, but that kind of Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers connection, that happens in games. And this team needs plays more than anything else. They need first downs. They need drives longer than 3, 4, and 5 plays. And DJ Moore, because he can get open, gives you that opportunity, because on 3rd and 4, he's that guy who can get that. The Bears almost never have this. He's that guy who, even when everyone's expecting him to get the ball, will still get the ball, get the first down, keep the chains moving. And this offense needs that to grow in its second season. So I think that's one of the most important things, I think, offensively, even more so than the offensive line is development, or as much as is just being able to give this offense room to breathe and room to grow, because under Luke Getsy, it has to. And DJ Moore's presence gives them the best chance to do that, because he's a guy who on either second and short, third and short, whatever, can get open and just keep the chains moving. And I know that's a real simple, non-sexy thing for the Bears to analysis of what the Bears need, but I just think it's true. I've seen too many bad Bears offenses to know that you gotta walk before you can run.
We're going to do 2 separate interviews here. Bragg's going to continue to ask about this team. I'm going to keep on going back in time, Mark. your favorite coach that you ever
It's
covered.
like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yes, I think we can do this. Your favorite coach that you ever covered dating back to 95.
For the Bears?
Yes. Well, you can expand out. Sure.
Well, no. Well, that's always, I'm real bad at that off the top of my head, because if I thought about it.
Well, I could name some.
That's why I'm in newspapers and not radio, because if I had a chance to think about it, I'd come up with a really good list. But off the top of my head, no. You know something? I'm going to say Wani. You know why? Because it was so much different then. We had so much better access to the coach. We had so much of a better relationship with the coach. He would come into the press room and talk to us and chat with us and so. And not that you need that, but that still makes it fun. It gives you a little better idea of what the coach is thinking or what the coach is about. And from a professional standpoint, I think even though he was not as successful, and he wasn't, certainly the years I was covering, he was not in 97, 98. But I just like Wani, and I'm happy that he's kind of been had this renaissance in Chicago for a guy who was as reviled as he was at the end of his. At the end of his coaching tenure, for him to have the stature in town that he does now, I think is great, and really says a lot, because it just shows that he hasn't been scarred. He hasn't been scarred that much, and his reputation hasn't been. So I think it's great. So my choice would be would be Wani, just because he was more likable, and I got to know him better. These coaches now, Matt Nagy, sorry to run on here, but Matt Nagy, nice guy. I really liked him. I wished he would have been more successful, but in 4 years, I never had one-on-one conversation with him. And that's just the way the Bears, that's the way the NFL, but especially the Bears run things now, is that you really don't get to know a guy. And so, that just shows you what the difference is.
Yeah. So now going back to the present, still sticking with this, some of my schedule thoughts, big picture. I heard some Bears fans trying to sell me the idea that 6 wins would be an improvement because it's twice as many wins as they had last year. And I was vehement that if they win 6 games, that's a huge disappointment. That your floor as a fan should be 7 wins. And they're like, well, they were the worst team in football last year. What do you expect? I literally don't. They were trying to lose. They are now trying to win. Is their roster perfect? No. How many teams in the NFL actually have a perfect roster? I don't care. I am not going to say 6 wins and at the end of the year be happy about that. What do you say to fans that do?
I agree, because I think your point is well taken, that this was there's a 3-win team that was not trying to win. I think that's important to know, that the Bears just weren't like any other 3-win team. So I think 3 to 6 would not be good. My feeling on that is improvement is all measured by Justin Fields. If Justin Fields becomes Justin Herbert and the Bears win 6 games, I'm good with that. Now, it's hard for him to be Justin Herbert, and for them they should win more than 6 games if he does. But I'm just saying, everything to me is focused on how good is Justin Fields, and it's it's interrelated. If Justin Fields is the better he is, the more games they should win. So I guess what I'm saying is, if they don't make the playoffs, but Justin Fields takes the next step, I think that's still a win for the Bears. And I will say this, a lot of times people have said, very few 3-win teams have taken, and in general, 3-win teams have not done well. There's not a lot of teams, but if you take 3-win teams in the Bears situation, which is a 3-win team under a first-year coach with a young quarterback, and who both of whom are there the second year, then that cuts it down. Then there are more teams like that have gone to the playoffs. There's like 5 or 6 teams in the last 20 years that, and I don't have it off the top of my head.
Trevor Lawrence and the
If
Jaguars.
you look it up, but there are 3-win teams under first-year coaches that get the same coach and the same quarterback in the second year, and like the fewest wins of those teams is like 7. Most teams have won 9, 10. The Colts famously went 13-3 with Peyton Manning, which is an extreme example, but still. So when you said 3 wins, that's what kicked into my head, is that the Bears, 3-win teams in the Bears situation have a much better chance to make a bigger jump. So to me, that refutes the idea that, they only won 3 games. How much improvement can they make? No, I think in their situation, second-year coach, second-year quarterback in the offense, everything the same coordinator, I think they have a much better chance to take a what people would call a quantum leap to 9, maybe even 10 wins, depending on how the schedule shakes out. I don't think it's absurd to think that can happen.
The great Mark Potash covering the Bears for the Chicago Times with us here on CHGO Bears. For those in the audio space, and if you somehow forgot who our guest is tonight, Mark, you grew up where again?
I grew up in Chicago.
In the city?
South side, and then north side in Lincolnwood.
Okay. So pure city. I'm so happy you just said that because it adds into my question. Are you going to be pissed if the Bears leave Soldier Field, leave the city?
No, I won't be. Because I just think they need, and I was a staunch, I wrote a column about this when all this first came up, is when, I was for the Bears, the renovation of Soldier Field, because I'm just an old school guy. I grew up in the city, and I just love Chicago, and I wanted that, and I think they needed that. But then I kind of changed my tune on that, and I don't like now I don't like the renovation, and I think them getting a modern stadium, even a dome stadium, I think is, I don't know about a must, but I'm all for it. It would be great if it was on the lakefront. It would be great if it was in the city, but that it's not. That's not an affront to my sensibilities as a Chicago sports fan for 60 years. That doesn't bother me like maybe it would have 20 years ago. I think it's just the reality of the NFL that they need this. So no, that's not gonna bother me. I wish it would be in the city, but that it's not. I live in Arlington Heights. I just hope it doesn't raise my property taxes. That's all.
You can sell your house and clean up at some point.
I don't think that's the way it works. Something tells me that's not the way it works.
Hopefully it won't hurt you. I think it probably will help you.
It's funny how the Bears get to debate with the assessor the valuation of their property, and I don't. I can appeal it. I'm an Arlington Heights resident too. I can appeal it, but whatever they say goes. I can't say try again like they're saying. But I guess when you're Kevin Warren and the Chicago Bears, maybe you have a little more power than just a citizen like myself, a homeowner like myself.
I mean, I'd love for it to stay in Chicago. I live closer to Chicago than I do Arlington Heights, being in Northwest Indiana. But, when we went to the high school town hall meeting last year and watched their presentation, it is impossible to not be excited about the idea of this thing. I mean, it's going to take 10, 15 years for it to actually be completed. But Bearslandia sounds awesome to someone like me, where I can run around this whole town with my shirt off and just go crazy. I mean, they're going to have kayaks. Me and Carm can, get in the paddle boat. It'll be romantic.
Yeah. I just like the fact that after seeing, and I was I'm an outdoor football guy, I'm, Grabowski, old school, whatever you want to call it. But after seeing some of these stadiums and the way they've gotten better about with the natural light and things like that, especially in Indianapolis, Houston, and the big one for me was Minneapolis. And when you see that stadium, every time I've gone there, I've tweeted out, Bears have to get one of these. And so to me, that's what it is. I don't need Bearland. I mean, the only thing I want there is a Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. That'll be my next big kick, is not a Bears Hall of Fame. I think if they're going to have a big complex like that, and I don't mean to take this off on a tangent, but I think there needs to be, I think George McCaskey, one of the best sports fan among all owners in town, should get behind a Chicago Sports Hall of Fame, which we have only in name only and on the internet only, and we really need it. That I would like to see, but really,
you're saying Chicago Sports Hall of Fame, not just Chicago Bears Hall of Fame.
Chicago Bears. If you were at that thing at Hersey High School, they actually have a Bears Hall of Fame listed as part of that project. but I think it should be the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. I think the city needs a Sports Hall of Fame that people from Chicago need to go to, not just people from out of town. And that, you know, maybe when I retire or whatever, or maybe before I do it, that will be my big kick to get that done. But that's only in regard to like it being a big complex. I'll be honest. I just think the stadium is the thing. And I almost wish that they would have just built the stadium and just take, you know, it's the Bears usually aren't good at thinking too big. And so I hope they haven't bitten off more than they can chew. But to me, it's a stadium. And going back to those stadiums now, the way they are, I've not been to SoFi, but I've been to the one in Vegas. And I go back to a US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. If they could just build that, I think that would be good. I think that'd be a good thing for Chicago and the Bears.
Hey, Mark, we appreciate the time. I don't know how long Bragg's going to hold you here, but just in case he's leaving.
I mean, Gary Ross did have one question in the chat.
I was going to throw it out there. Gary wants to know, how long do you think Jalen Johnson's going to hold out? What's your sense on that, if anything, at this point?
You know, the only thing I can say is I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's just a perfunctory thing and that he's going to be back, because I know how much Jalen Johnson thinks of himself, and he thinks very highly of himself. And I know how much the Bears are almost obsessed with getting players at their price. And so all I can say is if this thing goes longer than you think and gets into training camp or beyond, it would not surprise me, because both sides are, I think, pretty adamant. The Bears don't want to. Bears aren't going to overpay. You know, the Bears are not going to. I thought if you could I guess I was wrong, but I thought if you're going to overpay for anybody, overpay for Roquan Smith, because he's still going to be great, no matter, you know, even if he's not worth 20 million, he's going to be worth 18, and he's going to keep your defense together. I thought, to me, that's when you have cap space, I think it's okay to overpay for premium talent. You end up doing that anyway. You'll do that with the quarterback if he's good. So, but anyway, the Bears obviously wouldn't do that. A lot of that was for whatever, you know, personal reasons. I think they just didn't like him. And so, but my point is they seem like they really want to get, they're not going to just, okay, this guy looks good, let's pay him, you know, whatever, above the going rate to keep him happy and keep things going. So it would not surprise me if this thing goes on much longer, into the mandatory mini camp and training camp, because like I said, I know how strongly both sides feel.
I haven't heard anybody put it like that. I think it's spot on. The Bears, this regime has their price point, and they're not bumping on it. Once they hit their ceiling, be it with Roquan or Mike McGlinchey, or I suppose that's what's going on right now with Jalen as well.
Well, you could argue that's a good
David
thing.
Montgomery,
You can argue that's a good thing, that even when he was flush with cash, he didn't go overboard. He didn't overpay for somebody. The question is Jalen Johnson somebody who's homegrown, a key position, and a guy who can get even better in the next contract? Is he worth overpaying? Maybe Mike McGlinchey isn't. He's in a different career situation. The question is, I think overall, in general, that is a good GM trait. But you cannot be. There are no absolutes. You can't be absolutely cost efficient, and sometimes you have to splurge. And the question is, when do you splurge? Do you splurge for Darnell Mooney? Do you splurge for the quarterback? Do you splurge for the cornerback? So that's what makes and breaks. That's why some GMs are better than others. They know who to spend money on and who not to. It'll be interesting. But the other interesting thing is just the whole idea of culture. And you talk about they always like to talk about their great culture, but they've got two guys who apparently are not there for whatever reason, and Nate Davis and Jalen Johnson, and they got guys 2 years in a row now, guys who aren't happy with their contract. For some reason, that doesn't have anything to do with culture at Hallis Hall. So they kind of pick and choose when they like culture and when they don't. Yeah,
that was an interesting point you made in your most recent article about Nate Davis not being an OTAs after just getting paid. That's definitely odd.
Strange one. I'm surprised that didn't get more. I know Jalen Johnson, that's more of a normal thing, but I'll tell you, sorry to interrupt you, but
you're good.
Nate Davis is just a strange thing. Now, maybe he had an excused absence. Well, the Bears have to tell us that. I mean, otherwise, we're going to speculate. Otherwise, it's a stretch. An offensive lineman, that's a unit. That's a team within a team. Those guys are always so close. They always talk about how much time they need together. When's the last time an offensive lineman has kind of bolted in this situation? So I don't know. Maybe it's much ado about nothing. Maybe it's an excused absence. But on the face of it, it looks kind of strange to me that a guy who just got paid is not participating in OTAs, and the Bears wouldn't acknowledge, that it was just a personal
veteran thing. Yeah, it's a fair point to make. And, you had a great article kind of highlighting Tremaine Edmonds and the new look Bears. And I encourage everyone to go check out that article and every bit of the coverage you do, Mark, for the Chicago Sun-Times. Everybody here loves you, and we certainly do here too. So we appreciate all the time you've given us here tonight. When I told Carman that you were coming on, he's like, I love Potsy. And I was like, there we go. See, so
who doesn't?
So we appreciate you a lot, and I look up to you a great deal. Enjoy your courage in your questions. That's
well, I hope I look up
to do right by you at the combine, Mark.
Well, thanks, Greg, and thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, well, hey, next time we'll have to try to get you in studio sometime. We'd love to have you.
That would be great.
Okay,
just let me know.
Mark, good to see you. We'll see you. I guess maybe next Wednesday for the big OTA.
Sounds good, Mark. See you, Greg.
Yeah, brother.
Thanks again.
Have a good night. That is Mark Potash from the Chicago Sun-Times. Killed it here tonight here on CHGO Bears After Dark. So we appreciate his time as always. So, just moving on. One of the headlines of this show obviously was the David Montgomery quote, which I'm not sure if we were able to get it up. And my guy Steven in the back, having my back here today, brought this up. And David Montgomery said on his Lions Gaming podcast, or maybe not his, but he said, that's all I was used to, talking about the Chicago Bears. And it got to a point where it sucked the fun out of the game for me because I'm a competitor. I like to compete. That's what football's about. It's so refreshing to be in a place where that's appreciated. And this is a guy that has moved on to a historically bad franchise, as you and Hogue pointed out on the afternoon show. Find it kind of funny that that's what he's going to put as his big ringer point against the Bears. Obviously, he's jaded because he didn't get the money or whatever, but to me, he picked the Lions over the Bears. The Bears made an offer to him. At the end of the day, David Montgomery is going to have to get used to the treatment, maybe unfair. That is a different conversation, but running backs are treated this way. He's going to find himself on 2 or 3 different teams here in the next 5 years. And it's business, David. You're just, running backs have become a dime a dozen. 20 years ago, you would have been, one of the top players in the league. Now they'll find undrafted free agents that'll get the same kind of production. And Detroit already drafted a running back with the 12th pick in the draft this year in Jahmyr Gibbs. So, to me, I was always the one last year poking fun. I have respect for David Montgomery's game, but I just always felt that his value was overvalued by a lot of Bears fans because of the heart and the grit and his leadership intangibles. But at the end of the day, he had 200 carries, Mark, and only 1 carry for over 20 yards. It's not going to cut it. So he can get in his feelings all he wants. He's now in Detroit. Good luck to you, David Montgomery.
So, Gregory, are you taking a victory lap on David Montgomery right now?
He wants to shoot at us. I'm going to shoot back across the bow. And
David
everybody's now joining my bandwagon. I've been against Montgomery for a while, at least paying him. So now everybody's on me because he said something mean about us. So yeah, I'm going to lead the charge, shooting back at him because Bears are going to be better than Detroit this year.
I mean, we said a lot earlier today, so I don't have a whole lot of a huge leg to stand on here. But I do want to remind you and other Bears fans that 32 was first class when he was here. That's all. I do think we need to, give him some respect. He was first class on the field. He was first class off the field. Sure, he wasn't the greatest running back to ever do it, but he was super solid. He didn't feel appreciated. You ever not feel appreciated in life there,
There's
Gregory?
no way he appreciated by who? The fans adored him. The team loved him.
Are you a fan?
Yes, I'm a fan.
Did you not spend
the minority of
Did you-
guys that were like he's overvalued? Everybody else loved David Montgomery and refused to want to let him go. There wasn't anyone that didn't appreciate him here in Chicago. He's making that up. Unless he's literally talking about the dollars and cents off
Gregory.
Cramery.
You were on this show all season long. You were consistently talking about get rid of him. Not needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 32 literally was just watching this show. It's like, you know what? I'm going to stick it to Braggs.
Now, the Bears Bastard says he posted on Instagram saying he wasn't talking about the fans, which I have not seen yet. So, okay.
Okay.
I would hope not, because Bears fans love him. He's now a rival. So, I'm sorry. We're going to have to hate him at some point. Might as well start now.
We did. Okay. The Bears Bastard, thank you for that. All right. And he clearly, of course, was not talking about the fans, but Greg was talking about the fans. And I was just pointing out that as Greg is a fan and he went at him all season long. So it's not like all the fans loved him. It was a ridiculously hypocritical comment right there. So I just wanted to shine a light back, a little reflective situation here, because that was absurd. However, look, what he did not say is that he did not get a sense of appreciation clearly from this coaching staff. And I do think there is a way in which the Flus is just right down the middle, man. He is we're going to do things our way, and we have these expectations, and I'm sure he's got some favorites, but I think he's a non-favorite guy. And they are not going to look at the way they're treated Jalen. Flus was here for 5 seconds and he made him a second team guy.
Right.
So
Kevin Jenkins. And to your point, when they announced who the captains were, which was voted by the players, he was not one of the voted captains. It was Cody Whitehair, Justin Fields, and who help me out, Gary, in the chat. Who was the third one? But it wasn't David Montgomery. And then I think it was Roquan. And then when they traded Roquan or Robert Quinn, one of the two, when they got rid of and then had an open spot, again, it wasn't David Montgomery. And then that was the point I kept making over the season. I was like, all this leadership talk, but they don't put the C on his chest. So maybe that's what he's talking about, that he wasn't voted a captain, and that wasn't appreciated. I don't know. All I know is he's a rival now. He's on the Lions. He's they're gambling.
Are you booing him when he runs out of the tunnel?
Well, we won't be. I won't be in the tunnel. But if I was in the tunnel,
don't get into semantics. If you're there and he runs out of the tunnel, are you booing?
Yeah, I'll boo him.
All right, we got to end the show.
No, I got no issue with David when he was with the Bears, but now he's a rival. So I'm sorry. You're not.
You don't have to apologize.
Not only are you not here anymore, you're on our division rivals. The Lions. Everybody's the flavor of the month. They got them playing the Chiefs week 1 like there's some hot ticket when they're not. So I'm not. I'm sorry. Hey, I don't know what this.
I don't know what it is either. I just we don't need to get all hot and booey David Montgomery.
I'm getting hot about it. So I don't want to hear it. Quit your crying. Go get to work before Jahmyr Gibbs goes and takes your job. That's what I have to say about that. Hey, I'm the one that had I was leading the charge with David Montgomery. So now everybody's on board with forget David Montgomery. Get out of here. So whatever.
That's true. You get mayor of David Montgomery Sucks Boulevard. Congratulations.
Well, I was surprised Hogue didn't defend him, like he was one of his children. He actually went the other way. So I was surprised by that because I know how much Adam Hogue loves David Montgomery.
All right, for real though, we do got to get out of here because
All
there's
right,
a Cubs show
real
coming
quick
up.
then. We have a few super chats. The Bears Bastard 999 says, I feel like fans are taking what Monty said out of context. He didn't say anything bad about the fans or the city. I think he simply meant not being retained, not being appreciated, nothing malicious. All right. Fair.
I'm with you, D.
That's what Cram's saying. When I asked anybody's got any questions in the chat, Matt Nagy in our chat said, here's a question. Who does Eberflus think he is?
The Flus. He thinks he's the
and,
Flus, baby.
Michael Hollenbach said, what will you do if the Bears sweep the division, Carm? What will
The Bears sweep the division this year? I'll do a jump into Lake Michigan after the last one. So,
if the Bears sweep the division, Michael, I will get you a CHGO Bears shirt of any choice in our library. If they sweep the division, you come back. We got this clipped right here. Clip it, and I will get you a CHGO Bears shirt. That's how much I put.
I'll jump into the lake with the CHGO Bears shirt on to celebrate it and scream, yes, let's freaking go. $9.99 from Raw Dog. Rue Dog?
Boiler up.
Rue
That's
Dog.
Rue Dog,
Whoops.
not Raw Dog.
Rue Dog. Whoops.
Rue Dog 20.
Rue Dog. Rue Dog, boiler up.
It's officially become After Dark. Yeah, boiler up, hammer down. Awaiting the word on if Zach Edey will return. Rue Dog, Mark saw Zach Edey at what's that place you go to all the time?
Yes, I saw him at the health club. I saw him at East Bank. Zach Edey was working out.
East Bank.
That's
sounds
right,
like,
buddy.
Sounds like somewhere Zach Morris would go. I don't know. It just sounds. I want to go. It sounds amazing. Vibing with the dogs, aka my girl Elise, $4.99 super chat. It was Robert Quinn and Roquan Greg after they got traded. It went to Bojax and Jones for captains, and I know it was all voted by the players. I don't know if it was ever specified like after the players that were captains were traded. It was just the next ones in line, or did they just give them to people? Whatever. All I know is David Montgomery was not a captain, so that only maybe speaks to the underappreciated narrative he's pushing here now.
All right, Cubs beat the Mets 4-2. There's a post-game show coming on up here, so we got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. Gregory, outstanding to be with you. Steven, thank you. Everybody in the chat, you're amazing. We love all of you. You know this. And yeah, thanks to Mark Potash for being on the show today. Greg, great job getting him on here. That was awesome. We're back tomorrow at noon. And please give a review to the first ever Brags After 8 or Brags After Dark, BAD.
Bay. I'm your Bay.
Bay. Have a great night, y'all. We'll see you next time.